Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our community conversation on the film Resilience. Before we get started, I'd like to run over a few housekeeping items so you all know how to participate in this evening's event. First, all lines are on mute. If you experience any technical difficulties at any point during our presentation, please explain your problem through the chat feature, and we will try our best to address the issue. We will also be accepting comments and questions throughout this presentation. So in order to participate, please enter your question or comment into the question pane of your control panel. And if you'd like to speak, to voice that, please enter your question into that panel and also raise your hand. Once you raise your hand, we will click raise hand. So the moderator will call your name and we will unmute your mic to speak. And due to time constraints, please keep all questions and comments on topic. Also, we ask if you could subscribe to New Jersey OAG on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and Flickr for the latest updates on news, information, and resources from our office. And now I'd like to hand things off to our host and moderator for today, Elizabeth Reuben, Special Advisor for Victim Services in the Office of the New Jersey Attorney General.
Good evening, everyone. So nice to see so many people on this evening's event. My name is Elizabeth Reuben. Again, I'm the Special Advisor to the Attorney General for Victim Services. I hope this finds you all well and safe and healthy in this pandemic that we all know is in fact an ace going to be an ace for many children. We had over 1,000 people sign up to see this movie. We have hundreds on this discussion tonight. Just so very exciting that there's such an appetite for this information and so many of you want to participate in this conversation. So welcome to our discussion of the movie Resilience. Pre-COVID life, I would have wanted to have this in a circle where we could do some healing and some real human interaction, but obviously we're limited. So we're going to do the best that we can in this virtual format. And in a minute, I'm going to be joined by 4 smart, engaging, and truly compassionate people who will be our panel. I'm going to ask them questions, but I will also ask you questions and ask you to share your thoughts. And we really want to hear from you. So as Whitney said, please put your share anything you want in the chat feature. I will read comments throughout the evening. But if you really want to speak, then please also raise your hand and we'll unmute you. And if you could just speak for about 30 seconds, because we have a lot of content to cover. And again, please stay on topic. Like if you want to know where I got my glasses, we could talk about it later. We know that after watching the movie, you will have probably a lot of suggestions and questions that some of which the panelists just won't be able to address because it's not their area of knowledge or their authority. So they are very wise people, but they don't actually rule the world. So when we hear those ideas that we can't address on this panel, we're going to take them down and we will get them to the correct audience. And Dave Ellis, who you will meet in a minute, he runs the ACEs interagency team with all the government agencies, and he will take your ideas and Dave and I together will get them to the right folks. So I want you to know that all your thoughts and suggestions will be taken very seriously. So let's get started. I am going to introduce everyone in alphabetical order by their first name. And so first we have Commissioner Christine Norbert-Beyer. She is the head of a state agency, the New Jersey Department of Children and Families, that serves and supports at-risk children and families. The commissioner has degrees in social work, and she cares deeply about preventing the maltreatment of children and making families strong and whole. And there she is. Welcome, Commissioner. Nice to see you.
Thanks for having me.
And she also has a resiliency tool right behind her. She has her inhale, exhale sign, reminding us all to center on our breath, right? Thank you, Commissioner. Next, we have Dave Ellis, who is the director of the brand new State Office of Resilience. Dave came to New Jersey from Minnesota to lead this work. We are so fortunate to have him. He is an expert on ACEs who has trained thousands of people about ACEs, and he deeply understands trauma and trauma-informed responses. So welcome, Dave. So nice to see you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. It's good to be here. Good to be here.
And thank you for being in New Jersey. I'm glad we got you from Minnesota. Next, we have Attorney General Grabir Grewal. The Attorney General is the chief law enforcement officer for New Jersey, and he runs the state agency, the Department of Law and Public Safety. The Attorney General focuses heavily on preventing ACEs from happening in the first place through his work on combating gun violence and the opioid epidemic. So good evening, Attorney General. Nice to see you.
Good evening, E, and good to be with my fellow panelists tonight.
Yes, thanks for coming. Last, but definitely not least, we have Dr. Patty O'Brien Richardson. Dr. Patty, as she goes by, is an associate professor at the Blaustein School at Rutgers, and she has an extensive background in public health. Dr. Patty is a national thought leader on Black and brown girls and exercise, as well as educational curricula that promote wellness and reduce toxic stress, which we heard a lot about in the movie. So welcome, Dr. Patty, and thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thanks. So before we get started, I just wanted to acknowledge somebody who couldn't be here with us tonight because he had a conflict, and that is Chief Chris Lewisner of Middle Township Police Department. And when I first started working with Chief Lewisner, he told me every police officer in New Jersey has to see the movie Resilience. He was so emphatic about it. And we can't actually make every police officer see it, but we thought that doing this online screening and this virtual discussion would be a great way to start making this accessible, this movie accessible to more people, including law enforcement. When you hear Chief Lewisner talk about when he met Dr. Nadine Burke-Harris, who's in the movie, he talks about it as I would talk about if I met Beyonce. He just lights up. He's so excited that he met Dr. Burke-Harris. And he has such a passion for doing this work and addressing ACEs in New Jersey. So I just wanted to bring him into this space and acknowledge his incredible contribution, because I think we're really here. A lot has to do with Chief Lewisner. So, and thanks to DCF. Thank you, Commissioner, for partnering with the Office of Attorney General on this, and Office of Resilience, and thank you to you, Dr. Patty, for joining us tonight. So the first thing I want to know, and I would like people to put this into the chat, and then I'm going to ask the panel, is how you felt when you watched the movie. What came up for you? What were your feelings, and why do you think it's so important for people to see this movie? And please feel free to share your thoughts in the chat. And I'm going to start with you, Director Ellis. What are your feelings about this movie, and why do you think it's important for people to see it?
Oh, please just call me E. Just call me Dave. It works a lot better.
Okay, Dave.
So the things I think that came up for me are personal feelings, because I'm one of those people who comes with a highly traumatized background. And so there are things that I watch that actually trigger me in this work. And so I have to be constantly vigilant about making sure that the things that I do and the things that I say, that I take those into consideration. The way that we respond to people, the way we treat people, in fact, will have an impact on folks. And so, that's the first thing that comes up, is just how aware are we? And I think that that's the reason I want people to watch this, is that the more aware we are, the more we know, the more we can work to end this.
Dave, thank you for sharing that with us and for being vulnerable tonight. I really appreciate that, and I share your effort to manage our triggers every day. So I appreciate your honesty there. Attorney General, you emailed me after watching the movie and you said, "Wow, what were you feeling? What were you thinking after seeing the movie?"
I mean, it was a range of feelings. I think it was really just, I gasped at the end and just said, wow. And that's what I wrote to you. Wow, because it was overwhelming. I was overwhelmed because I didn't know. And I thought I knew a lot. I thought I knew a lot about the criminal justice system, how prosecutors should do their jobs, how cops should do their jobs, how we should be treating people. I always thought that I went that extra mile to understand and show empathy and be mindful of all these issues when we're formulating policies and doing our work. But I never knew that adverse childhood experiences cause such profound and long-lasting harm to young people, to their bodies, to their minds, and the science and the data and everything, how it was explained in the movie just overwhelmed me. And you know, we talked about the denial that the experts spoke about in the movie. That has caused real harm. The fact that we in law enforcement have not picked up on this for so long and not made it part of our work. I just thought about, you know, all the sentencings or things that I argued where I didn't take these sort of things into consideration in the cases that I handled, you know, with the 19-year-old, with the 20-year-old. You know, how many people did we miss helping because we weren't aware of this? But at the same time, with all of that, with all those negative sort of thoughts, there was a profound sense of hope also. And that's why when Chris Lewisner first brought this up to me, that this was going to be the mission, his project as the head of the Chiefs Association, that he wanted to get this done. When I saw him speak about this at the Chiefs Conference in Chicago, and I saw the passion, I hadn't seen the movie at that point. I just got behind it because of his enthusiasm. And now having seen this, having done some of the directives we put in place, I'm also at once incredibly hopeful that we are going to help young people, and we're going to put young people on better paths now that we understand the effects of this trauma on some of our young people. And you know, I really hope that every law enforcement officer watches this. We can make them watch it, so we have that option. But I hope they watch it voluntarily because it is that profound of a movie.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that really honest answer. And I want to circle back on that later about kind of law enforcement's role and more about your thinking, but I want to give our other folks a chance. Commissioner Byer, what were you feeling when you watched this movie?
You know, I would say certainly hopeful. A sense of urgency is probably how I left, you know, the movie. I've been studying ACEs probably for the last 8-9 years before even coming into this role as commissioner. And I'm so excited about where we are in New Jersey and the efforts that we're making across state departments, in local communities, in our provider agencies. And yet I still was left with, it's not enough. It's not enough. It's not fast enough. Not enough people know about it yet. And so I am excited about all that we're doing and we have underway and that we're undertaking here in our state. And I think it's, you know, forums like this and the efforts around the interagency task force that we really are going to be able to make significant strides very quickly. I think, you know, there were a few quotes and things that I found myself, you know, taking notes or writing down from each of the professionals, you know, the experts in the movie. But the last thing I wrote was disrupting the cycle of adversity. And I feel like that is what we're doing. That is like what we're charged with in New Jersey, to disrupt the cycle of adversity to improve the lives for New Jersey's residents. So I'm excited to be where we are and to be, you know, embarking on this journey with all of you.
Thank you. You were sharing. Yeah, when I watched it, I had like a total existential crisis because I felt like I'm not doing enough. I should be. You know, like you feel this panic, like, oh, these children's lives, like we have to help them right now. And I know we all are, but you just want to do everything at once. It's really can be overwhelming. Dr. Patty, can you talk a little bit about how you felt watching the movie, but also if you just kind of talk about someone who works in public health and has worked in public health for so long, like the commissioner was saying she's been studying ACEs for a long time. Were there surprises for you in this movie? Was there things you didn't know?
Well, you know, when I the first emotion that I had was I actually cried. You know, I cried because, you know, so much of the movie, the film, really needs to be seen by just everyday average people. I mean, it's so great that we saw so many professionals and physicians and social workers, educators, but really it made me more determined to be in the field that I'm in of public health, and also having taught and being an educator in the K through 12 space for so many years. I really cried because I felt that this is something I think that educators have known for a long time. And the two fields of education and health, they just go hand in hand. It's like the very first line, the body remembers. And so we know in public health that so much of what we see, it's like that is the fruit of what we see, but that's not the root. And I think so long in public health and in the medical community, we are trained to treat the fruit. But honestly, we have to go deeper and see that a fruit just doesn't appear on a tree, that there is a deeper root. There is a reason for what we see, what a patient would present, what a client would present, and even our children that we see every day. And so I felt a sense of hope also, because, you know, it made me think this is exactly what many have seen for a long time, but there wasn't a word we could put to it. There wasn't a scalable framework that we could put to it. We would just see behaviors in the classroom and wonder, well, how do we address this? And so we have many children that have gone unscreened, really misdiagnosed, and addressing the fruit. And so what I really felt hopeful about was that, okay, this is great. We need to get this out more. It's great to have it in a film format so that others can see it. And I think this type of forum is great because we can talk about it more. Everyone can take it back to their communities. There's something for everyone. So I think for me, not just as a public health professional or as an educator, but this also as a parent. You know, I'm a mother of 4. I think for me, the takeaway just really made me feel hopeful, and it made me feel determined that I'm able to work in this space.
Thank you. Yeah, well, I mean, kind of what Attorney General was saying, right? We're seeing that when you were seeing the fruit, he was seeing the fruit in the criminal justice system, and you're seeing the fruit in the public health system, and Commissioner seeing the fruit in the, you know, in that system, and it's like, we gotta get to the root. So just a word about the movie, so folks know there is a 20-minute clip that you can watch on the website. And when we screened that, and you know, it's somebody's intellectual property, you have to pay to watch the whole movie, which is why we did the screening in this format. But you can't, just the 20-minute clip is really powerful. And we, you know, Attorney General knows we showed it at the Handle with Care directive, and we were just overwhelmed by people who wanted to see the whole movie. So hopefully we'll just keep, this will be, and other folks have been doing screenings too, but hopefully we'll just keep showing this movie, tell everybody in New Jersey knows, because I'm just looking at the chats here, and I want to bring folks into the conversation that everybody, someone said that it was really uncomfortable, but extremely important work, that someone was really moved by the fact that children don't even have to remember it, but they can still be affected by something that happened later in life. They want immediate thoughts that everybody in New Jersey should be addressing ACEs, which I think everybody in this call agrees with. Another viewer really wants to have ACEs education to every educator and everyone in every school professional, which is, again, something I think we're all working on. So great ideas. And then, somebody had a quote here. There's always a reason we do what we do. And ain't that the truth, right? Like we act out of our wounds, and we see people that all the time in our fields. And someone said this is, I think, for you, Attorney General, or for all of us, but this is the why behind the what cops are responding to. You know the why, and you know how to make a positive difference on the front end. And then, I mean, we see that law enforcement is so, it's so much to ask them it's so much to ask all these systems to deal with the after effects, right? It's really not fair. We need to be addressing the fruit. As someone said, they are happy and relieved that concrete steps are being addressed taken to address ACEs. So thank you all. We have more. I'll try to keep going through them. It's hard to listen to what people are saying and read them, but I just want to thank you all for gathering this. And of course, we will compile everything later and make sure we don't miss anything. So Commissioner, I want to ask you, and folks, please keep coming in. I would love to know too, what from the audience, like what surprised you, and what do you think how will you think and act differently as a result of seeing the movie? I would love to hear people's thoughts on that. And Commissioner, I want to ask you that, you know, you took the helm at DCF in 2018. And the Division of Child Permanency and Placement is within your agency, and this agency is tasked with really responding to some of the most harmful things that could happen to a child, right? Whether it's abuse, neglect, abandonment, and more, really profoundly traumatic things. And so what's your agency do to help build resilience in these children? Is that something, could you talk about that? Oh,
Yeah. No, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you, yes.
Okay, so hopefully I see my webcam kind of spinning. So
You're back.
Okay, I'm back, yeah. I'll just keep talking and hope my Wi-Fi hangs on. So, I think within the department, building resiliency in children is many ways through the services that we offer. Our service array includes mental and behavioral health services through our children's system of care. We offer many evidence-based trauma-focused CBT, trauma-focused therapies for children who are victims of physical or sexual abuse, and or children of domestic violence survivors. Since 2018, we have been supporting the expansion of statewide child advocacy centers. And so we're on track to have 21 child advocacy centers, one in every county in the state, which is significant. I think we'll be the first state in the country to actually achieve that goal. Beyond services exclusively for children, which there are many more that include recreation and mentoring programs and some kind of softer services in addition to those treatment programs, we also have many therapeutic services to build the protective factors for parents and strengthening parents, their ability to be buffers, of the adversity of their children. And I think that was something in the movie, was something else I wrote down that Dr. Burke Harris said about strengthening parents. They are the ones who need to be the buffers for their children. And so our goal in our work in the department is not just protective services, and it's not just working or trying to intervene after something has already happened to children. We know that so many of our adults, our parents, are hurt children in adult bodies, right? They themselves have experienced trauma and adversity in their own childhood that was not resolved. And so again, what others have said today, you're kind of seeing that then act out or get played out in their relationships, in their adult life. And so it's really important for us to also recognize that, to become a family strengthening system and not just about, a child protection system. We need to do both. And so, continuing to provide those services. But along those lines, some of what I'm very proud of that exists within the department are, the array of prevention services we have that really are offered universally to families, to all families in New Jersey, that you don't have to be connected to DCPMP, or you don't have to be connected to the Children's System of Care to access our statewide network of family success centers. We have 57 across the state, and those centers really are about building parent capacity and resilience and teaching parents how to engage and interact with their children in really positive ways. We also have evidence-based home visiting programs. New Jersey is the only state in the country that has 3 evidence-based home visiting programs in all 21 counties. So that's unique to our state, and that home visiting is an area that I would really like to see grow and develop, for all new parents, because anyone who's a parent, when you bring that new baby home, having support, having somebody to call, having somebody to assist you, really would help in strengthening the parent-child bond, but also addressing some of the fears and anxieties that parents have, and maybe some of, the triggers that might emerge from their own past or their own childhood, and we might be able to mitigate those. And then we have our Keeping Families Together program, where we house over 620, might even be 650 now, families where in supportive housing programs that instead of removing children for their own safety, we have the opportunity to place families in their own home with their children, with the support of community providers, to be able to help keep families together at the same time strengthening them. So, you know, I could continue to go on. We have some really extraordinary programs within the Department of Children and Families that I don't think the general population knows about or really understands. I think most people hear DCF or DCPMP and they think that we are about child protection only, or that it's about removal of children into foster care. And we are not that system. Yes, we provide that service, but we really have been working over the last 15 years to reform our system to become a child and family serving system. And the work that we're doing in this administration and through this ACE's work, and why I'm so excited to be able to host the Office of Resilience within the Department of Children and Families, is to continue and strengthen that partnership so that we are becoming a family strengthening system, family strengthening department, and really helping to ameliorate and, you know, mitigate ACEs for future generations.
Thank you, Commissioner. That's a lot.
Yeah. Thanks.
A lot. And
thank you.
Just real quickly, I want to share some of the thoughts that someone wants DCPMP to show this movie at all their staff training. And what are you laughing at, Dave?
I was going to say, you hear that, Dave? That's we have some work to do. You have some work to do.
They should know that we will be showing this film, but we'll also be offering training specifically across the department and across any other state department that we can find that will let us in their doors, and any agency in the community. So there are a lot of things that when you come to me, I'll give you kind of a full rundown.
Okay. Let's see. We also, somebody's not happy that there isn't a pediatrician on the panel, and all I can say is that, you know, you can't get everybody on every panel. I hope you find it useful regardless. They are, let's see, what somebody thought, wow, how this new knowledge could impact change in the way we work with children and families. They're really hopeful that seeing this movie will make a difference, which is why we watched it. Someone else recommended that we really that this ACE's information should be emphasized with workers who are directly working with birth families, as many adults are working with our children of trauma. Exactly what you said, Commissioner, talking about that. Yeah, where some of us are just children in adult bodies, right? All right, so keep that, and we'll have some folks weigh in with thoughts. We can unmute them in a little bit. Attorney General, I wanted to turn to you. And you talked about some of this before, about just the fact that often when we arrest somebody, they're really someone who's didn't get any resiliency assistance when they were a child. You said this was not something you thought about when you were a prosecutor, and that you are thinking about it, you know, really more deeply now. So what else would you like to see done differently? And then I would also love for you to talk about the Handle with Care directive and why you did that and the motivation for that powerful directive.
Sure. You know, it's been an evolution for me. I think that's the only way I could describe it. You know, when I was a young federal prosecutor, I was fortunate to have been hired by a U.S. attorney in Brooklyn, who made it plain on that first day that our job was not to convict people, but it was to seek justice. But what seeking justice meant at that point in my life was, okay, so when you're sentencing somebody after they've been arrested, after they've gone through the system, after they've been convicted, well, you'll take some mitigating factors into consideration, and then you'll, you know, maybe agree to some leniency in the sentence. And then, you know, when I became a county prosecutor in Bergen, I had a little bit more autonomy and more ability to do a little bit to help people divert from the criminal justice system. And there I focused my efforts because it was the issue I was dealing with at the time on the opioid epidemic, understanding that, people are not committing crimes to get rich. They're committing crimes because they're suffering, and they're suffering from a disease. And so you can't lock up a disease. And let's find people different paths to recovery and paths to help themselves. And so we launched programs like Operation Helping Hand because we understood a little bit more about addiction in law enforcement, that it wasn't a law enforcement issue, it was a public health crisis, and we dealt with it that way. When I became Attorney General and we started to look at ways, and we talked about cycles of victimization, cycles of violence, cycles of adversity, how do we get off this hamster wheel we seem to be on all the time and not getting different outcomes? Because whatever we're doing right now is not working. And so part of that was learning more about trauma and learning more from people like you, E, from Chief Lewisner and others. Something just so simple as hurt people. When you said that to me, that resonated. And so you start to think about, well, how do we break these cycles? And so what you see happening in New Jersey, and hopefully we could be a model for this, is this trauma-informed approach to policing. And what I mean by that, it's not, that question, what's wrong with you? And they talked about it in the movie, what happened to you? What happened, that we're here today? And so, that's informed a lot of the policies that we've implemented to date. It informed Handle with Care, which was, and again, the doctor spoke about it. It's the child may not remember, but the body does, right? These, and resilience is developed. And so we need to do everything we can to help young people who are the victims of this trauma. So Handle with Care was Chief Lewisner coming to us in partnership with the DEA saying, hey, I've implemented this program in Middle Township and it's working. We're helping young people who might be in a house when a search warrant is executed, or when there's a domestic violence incident, or when there's some sort of other law enforcement interaction with a family member or parent. And we're just doing something simple as telling the school that something happened to this young person. Just keep an eye on that young person. If they have a test or if they're acting out, it's not because they want to be disruptive, but they're dealing with something else, and let's try to help them process that. And just that flagging, I think, is just transformational, because that's how we're going to break cycles. That's how we're going to lead to better outcomes. And that was really the genesis of us implementing Handle with Care. Now, every law enforcement agency in the state will be making those Handle with Care notices. Something so simple, but it's going to have a profound effect. And so, for me, it's been an evolution over the last number of years since I've been, a prosecutor for almost about 15 years, just learning more. And that's why I was so disappointed in myself that I didn't know about this already, because I think we missed helping a lot of people. But I'm also optimistic, like I said, because we have an opportunity to change lives. And so Handle with Care is just one part of it. We've done a lot on the juvenile justice front also. We issued a directive last week where we're making the diversion of young people out of the criminal justice system to get them help and other options, instead of just throwing them into the criminal justice system. So we're trying to emphasize diversion at every point in an equitable way: curbside adjustments, station house adjustments, every opportunity we can to divert a young person out of the criminal justice system, because we have a better understanding of why they might be acting out or acting in a certain way, and we have more hope to help them get on the right path.
Thank you. Well, Attorney General, one of the things I really love about working with you is you are always just learning and open to new information and reflecting on how we did things in the past and how we can do things differently in the future. So I love being part of that work. Thank you for the honor. Somebody else who chatted and was really moved by the quote that it's not what's wrong with you, it's what happened to you. That she thinks that's just incredibly impactful. And I think I know when my kids were little and they would, I had 3 kids in 4 years and they would act crazy, and my ex-husband would say, "What are you, 2 or what are you, 3?" And that would just shift my whole mindset about it, reminding me they're just children. And I think that just having that be your mantra, it's not what's wrong with you, it's what happened to you, can help us do the same thing when we interact with other human beings, right? It's just like, okay, what happened to you? How can we help you? How can we reframe your behavior? Dave, I want to talk to you about, you're new to New Jersey. taking over this massive ACEs campaign. What are we doing really well? We heard a bunch of it from the commissioner and from the attorney general, but what, if you could talk about other things that we are doing really well, and where also what you see as the real areas for improvement. And folks, keep sending those. We're getting so much great feedback, and I know somebody said that they want to see the feedback at the end. I'm not sure what you mean, so if you could just reiterate, like, or elaborate on that one. If you want to see the feedback from tonight or from, I'm not really sure. Somebody just real quickly was there. They felt really uplifted that by the incredible results from the interventions that they saw in the movie. So Dave, I think that connects with what I want to talk to you about, and the importance of prevention and making mental health care a part of routine health care, having difficult conversations, and how important that is. So just some more thoughts from people in the audience. Thank you for sending them in. And Dave, you can talk about where we're rocking and where we maybe need to do a little bit more work.
I've been coming to New Jersey for about the past 5 to 7 years now, working with the New Jersey Education Association. My wife and I moved here in July to start this position and to do this work. One of the things I found in New Jersey is that there are a lot of things that are going on. People are doing a lot of very good work. A lot of them are on this call tonight. And we'd be remiss if we didn't point that out. I talk every day with programs that are doing some absolutely phenomenal things in our community. I think if there are 2 things that really need to happen. For me, the first one is we tend to work in silos. And there are a lot of good things, as I said, that are going on, but not everybody knows about them. And so one of the specific things that we are trying to do within this work through the Office of Resilience is to figure out how do we not break people out of their silos, because if you understand the science around ACEs, you understand that when you impact a specific thing, if your area is homelessness, if you're impacting homelessness, you're actually impacting all of the other ACEs at the same time, right? And so it's not about driving people out of their silos, but we do want people to talk about what they're learning. As you're doing this work, what's working, what's not working. Let us figure that out and let us share that information so that all of us have an opportunity. When I do work in schools, I do a lot of teacher evaluation and feedback. And the one thing that always shows is that they never get a chance to talk to one another. And so there are teachers on one side of the building that have an issue that people on the other side of the building are experiencing, and they figured out how to deal with it, but nobody ever talks about it. And so the more we can share, the better off that we'll be with that. The second thing that I would say is that we do a really good job.
So are you saying the Office of Resilience will be that connective tissue that will bring everybody together and break down the silos?
That is correct. That is part of what our role is going to be, is to figure out how do we get everybody to start to share that information. We have a virtual learning community, a New Jersey specific ACEs connection page that people can join. The office.
Sorry, how do folks find that?
You would ask me that. I'm never the one to have the technology right at my fingertips, right? And anyone who has heard me,
afterwards, we'll send the link
we'll
out.
Post it. The other thing that I'll tell you is that the Office of Resilience now has its own email address. So if you go out to the Department of Children and Families website, you'll find our email address there. And we'll also post that for folks. And that's another way that you can connect with us. But the other thing that I think that we could do really well, as I was saying, we train professionals all the time. And, Attorney General, you made the statement a little while ago is what we're doing isn't working. And that's been my mantra since I started doing this work in the early 2000s. Every time I ask someone, that's the answer I get. And as I started to look at how we all do our work, there's one group that's never at the table. And that's the group of people who are most directly impacted. Somebody is either bringing their story or somehow it's being shared, but it's not them who is bringing that story. They're not the ones who are engaged in leading and developing projects. And the reality is, if we truly want, the answers don't really sit within agencies, it sits out in community. And it's the work that happens with people in the community that will allow us to actually begin to move this forward. But it does require us to do things in a different way. It requires us to engage with those who are most directly impacted, who in most cases are not we have programs that do that, but we need to engage them in policy. When you ask the commissioner about the work at DCF, two things flash through my head instantly: the youth council and the parent council, because those are two direct interfaces that the Department of Children and Family has directly with folks in the community. And those are the folks who are helping us lead whatever prevention and intervention efforts are that we have. In doing this work, you find out a lot of things. And typically if you understand the science of ACEs, you know that they're pretty common, right? And when you think about law enforcement, some of those folks have ACEs too. Mm-hmm. And what I've learned in doing this work is that if we have not addressed our own issues, if we haven't started to face our own traumas and things that have begun to impact us, it's really hard for us to step in and help other people. And so as we're thinking about how we help everyone else, the real challenge is to figure out how I do my own work, because we really seldom want to step inside our own bodies. When you talk about us being our childhood trauma wrapped up in adult bodies, that's exactly it. We don't want to go in there. And yet, that's the one, until we get that straight, it's really hard. And if we're working with other people, we truly have to begin to address that. I mean, there are so many spaces and places that things that I'd like to say. You know, we have this fabulous interagency team that's made up of 9 state agencies, a representative from the governor's office and the first lady's office, that are going to help us implement this statewide plan that I'm charged with helping to develop or leading in the development. And just so you know, that plan is due to be released in the first quarter of 2021. And the invitation is to join us. We don't have all the answers. It's a living plan, and it'll be a space and place for everyone on this call and more. And so we're inviting people, please step into the space, help us do this work. We can't do it by ourselves.
E, can I just jump in really quick to comment on something David said? You know, and you mentioned it earlier, E, you know, this is law enforcement, right? You know, we are sort of pushing this conversation because we are frustrated too, because you know, whatever we've been doing is not working. And, you know, when I see the movie, right, one of the things we haven't talked about yet is Kendra's program, right? When something so simple, right? And you have proof of concept right there in that movie, where you have the educators, you know, interceding early and identifying these issues with young people. We're not all rowing in the same direction here in the state, right? And so, you know, if you have cops talking about handle with care to flag things for teachers, then, you know, it's a little bit too late in some cases. So, you know, it's just, all of us have to be on the same page here. And, you know, and I have to really, you know, take this moment, because, like, you know, we talk about all this, that we don't want our cops to be the mental health counselors. We don't want the cops to be the marriage counselors. We don't want the cops to be the drug counselors. We want professionals to do this. Where are the professionals, right? Like, that's the problem. And so, you know, right now we're trying to do whatever we can, and that's what I feel like. We're evolving, we're scrambling, we're throwing out the handle with care policy because we just want to flag this. Like, we see this, here educators do something here, you know, and, you know, we're doing it in the diversion of young people. And so, you know, we've done it in other spaces. We have coordination when it comes to other public health crises, when it comes to the opioid epidemic. I have never seen a whole of government response in my experience in government like I've seen for the opioid epidemic. Well, this is a full-blown pandemic too, right? When we're talking about adverse childhood experiences. We need that same whole of government approach that you were talking about, Dave, to get everybody on that same page. And I'm hopeful that this task force will do that, because we need that Kendra's program. We need law enforcement to flag what's happening, because if we don't, then Christine's going to be dealing with the parents who, are not doing things the right way, because, it just stays with them, right? And then that's that cycle. Then I'll be dealing with them in the criminal justice system.
Yeah.
And we just need to get on the same page to break this cycle.
And I really want to be clear. It's not just educators and law enforcement.
Yeah.
We're talking about the business community. We're talking about the medical community. We're talking about everything across the board. One of the questions I keep asking is, when legislation gets written and at the Capitol, does anybody think about what are the implications through a trauma lens of what the impact of that legislation is going to be? I don't think we should be passing any legislation until we know that we're not further traumatizing people. That if we can figure that piece out and at least have the conversation, that to me just seems like something we should be thinking about, at least at this point.
I love it. We have economic impact statements when we have legislation that's passed. And why not have a trauma impact statement, just so we're focused on this issue? But that it's just a refocusing of the conversation. But I love it. I love that suggestion.
Well, Dave, it'll probably show up in reverse, but I wanted to show you that I'm drinking from my mug from my an ally of mine. And it says, people closest to the problem, it says Glenn Martin, people closest to the problem are closest to the solution, but furthest from the power and resources. And, when I ran a team of previously incarcerated people, first of all, we did the ACEs quiz once, and they found it hilarious. They were like, what? Patty knows my old team. They were like, there are people who, these are the only things that happen to them. Like, they could not, and then, but so empowered. Then they were like, they had new language to talk about it. But I used to ask for us to go to ACEs things, and people would say, well, why would you show up? We we're welcome. Well, our team, we had the highest ACEs in the state, which is why they ended up incarcerated, right? And so, like, yes, break down the silos. Every system is impacted by this, and we do have to, every time we think about a policy change, make sure we're not further traumatizing people. I wanted to just read some of the comments here that someone gave a shout out to the New Jersey student assistance counselors who are impacting kids dealing with trauma every day in our schools. I was not familiar with them, so thank you for giving them the shout out. Somebody wanted to know how you watch the movie. You have to make arrangements with the production company. So you got on their website, and Dave and I are here to tell you it can take a little bit of logistics, but it's worth doing. Stick through it. What's that, Dave?
There are other opportunities that are coming. I know that the Trenton Mayor's office is getting ready to do another screening. And so if you contact the Trenton Mayor's office, and I don't mean to flood them with phone calls, okay? Because I can see what's going to happen. But I know that there are other times and places that there will be opportunities. So keep your eye open. Check out the virtual learning community. And again, we'll make sure you know what that is. I'm trying to figure out how to post it on here, and I can't figure that out. So maybe our technical person.
Yeah, maybe we have the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain, Whitney. If you're able to find that and post it in chat.
So I was looking for it, but I couldn't find the link specifically. But if you want to mention it in the chat to all audience, or David, if you want to send it to me via email, I will add it in.
I will do that.
Somebody who works at the New Jersey Coalition to End Domestic Violence said that this film validates our social change plan, which includes the need to create spaces and opportunities that allow individuals and families to heal as one pathway to prevent domestic violence. This includes starting early with children. Amen to that. Yes, the New Jersey Coalition to End Domestic Violence is doing such interesting and important work around looking at the whole family and breaking out of the binary that human beings are either good or bad, right? Most of us are messy and complicated and wounded, and we make mistakes and we hurt each other. And we need to take a collective healing approach. And the coalition is doing really interesting work there. As somebody else would like all pediatricians to see this movie and develop easy screenings. So Dave, that would maybe something you and I can follow up on. And
on that point, E, on the pediatricians, it just occurs to me, one of my other responsibilities as AG is to oversee the professional boards in our Division of Consumer Affairs, to include the Board of Medical Examiners. And I think a good idea would be, when we talk about everyone has to do their part in this, that screening tool that Dr. Brooks had, that's got to be a best practice. That's got to be part of the training. So we have some say in the continuing medical education requirements for physicians. So this might be an area where I'll talk to Director Rodriguez to see if there's some way to incorporate this type of approach in their training.
And Attorney General, I was going to say, I just want to add, sorry, Dave, and I'll make sure you get this after the call, but there is a foundation that's funding some of what you just spoke about, like having the screening tool in pediatricians' offices in certain counties in the state as pilot. So I think that we probably will have a model to share.
Awesome.
Well, if nothing else comes of tonight, I mean, besides the fact that over 1,000 people watched the movie and we have 350 people on this call tonight, we have created something that's going to have some movement for something that's going to happen. I have chills and again, tears in my eyes. So thank you. That's exciting. Patty, I wanted to bring you into it because I think actually someone mentioned this, that they want like actionable steps, like the Attorney General was saying. When we watched the movie, we saw about the I've forgotten her name, the drama play.
Kendra.
What's that?
The Kendra piece?
Yes. Name is Kendra. Thank you. I have a head injury, so I don't remember things a lot of times. But Patty, your work, you do a lot of work around exercise and the body and holding trauma and releasing trauma and managing toxic stress through exercise and wellness and healthy. So can you talk to us about just some insights? What are some things we can do, especially, and we're running tight on time. So if there are things that people could be doing at home during COVID related to movement in the body, any pro tips you could share with us?
Absolutely. So, we are living at a time where pretty much everyone is experiencing one form of trauma or another. Just with COVID, we're all experiencing loss. And even myself personally, I lost my dad this year due to coronavirus. And so one thing that has been really helpful and healing for me, and it was echoed in the film as well, in addition to the screening that was mentioned, but after Dr. Burke mentioned the screening, she mentioned basic things that everyone can do, like eating better. Now, I know a lot of that has to do with access, right? And just really being able to access, the ability to have access to healthy fruits and vegetables and other types of food, water, basic things. And she did also mention movement. And one of the best things that we can do that's free is just to move every single day. And so there's just so much mounting evidence about the effects of movement when it comes to healing from trauma. It's just unbelievable how much there is out there in the literature in terms of public health, in terms of medical best practices. And so that's something that everyone can do in moving. I heard her mention also meditation. And that is, again, something that is free, that everyone can do. And that's something that has been very healing for me as well. One of the things that I've been able to do in my work is to create teacher trainings, to create curriculum that parents, advocates, and educators can take and really practice meditation. I don't call it meditation in the classroom. Being a K through 12 educator, that term is not actually helpful sometimes in certain classrooms. So my program is called Move Your Mind. Move your mind. And so it really helps students to move their mind from feeling one way to another way. But really and truly, we're doing meditation. I call it tools for your toolbox. We do a lot of what you have on your wall, Commissioner, inhale and exhale. These are things that are free. They're practical things that we can do. And this is a great way that educators can take this right into their classroom, and they can use it as a transition to go from one section to the next. At Rutgers, at the Blaustein School, some of my students call me the breathing professor because I do breathing with the students, and I use it as a transition. we're talking about one thing, and then I say, okay, it's time to take a collective breath, and let's all inhale. And we do it together, and then we move on to the next topic. And so these are very basic, practical things. Parents can do this to address their own toxic stress. And so I think really trying to get out and move is super helpful. This past summer, I was able to go on walks, bike, and just to really get out. But that might not be accessible to everyone, but everyone can get up and move. I saw something recently, I think it was on Facebook, about a woman who was walking around her living room just a few times around in a circle, an older woman who's in her 80s. And she was able to just feel so much healing from that. So they're just basic things that we can do. But I think that we really have to get back to just the basics of being able to just do practical things every day to really work on ourselves and really practice that self-care and address the stress.
Thank you, Dr. Beck. You know, my old team I ran, we learned box breathing. We learned 4-7-8 breathing, and I'll just tell everybody, because it's one of the things that gets me through every day, is you breathe in for 4, hold in for 7, and breathe out for 8. And every now and then when things were getting a little heated, one of the guys would say, 8, we need to do our breathing. We need to all do our breaths. And these were guys who were like very opposed in the beginning to doing any kind of breathing exercises. They told me this, you know, it was the movie Get Out, and I was going to put them in the basement and suck their brains out. And then, you know, pretty soon, and if you've seen Get Out, you know, pretty soon they were asking to do the breathing, because we all learn like this, it just re-regulates us. And then, you know, just walking around the block sometimes, right, can be help us. So, all right, we are running super tight on time, and I know we have a hard stop at 7:30. So I have learned a lesson that we need a lot more time for this discussion. It has been so powerful, but I want, Commissioner, I just wanted to see if you had anything else you wanted to add about assisting young people through this horrible time being stuck in a house. Did you?
Yeah, you know what, just very briefly, thank you, E. I think I just want to say to everyone, connections count, connections matter. Everyone wants to feel and needs to feel connected during this time. And so that's certainly true for all of us, for adults, but it's very important for children also of all ages. And I think, you know, just checking in regularly, you know, with neighbors, if you have, you know, family members or friends who have young children, this is the time where people are feeling isolated. And so being able to just pick up the phone and call someone or text someone, let them know you're thinking about them. It's not always, as we heard from Dr. Richardson, it's not always about the therapeutic intervention. It really is sometimes just about human connection. You know, I have someone who I worked with a lot of years who says in a lot of her talks that, you know, we came into this world connected, literally connected to another human being. And, you know, it's like, and she always says, look at your belly button if you need proof of that. And that we need those, you know, we were connected, we need to be connected. And I think that's so much for me about this ACEs work and being trauma informed. That the human condition is that we want to be connected. We need to be connected. Sometimes some of the worst atrocities come and happen by people who feel disenfranchised or disconnected. And so I would just say during this time to continue to reach out and care about people, whether they're in your family, your friend network, or your clients.
Thank you. I know I feel better just seeing you all on the screen. So the power of connection is intense. Attorney General, we have we're almost out of time. Did you want to add anything to at the end here? Did you have any closing thoughts for us?
I just want to thank you for starting the conversation at OAG. I want to thank everybody who's participated in tonight's conversation, and I want all those who are listening at home to know that you know, this is the start. This is not the end of our work. We are all committed to making this a part of our lives and how we do our jobs and all of our different respective spaces. And I think, you know, New Jersey's on the cusp of something great. We've implemented aspects of this, but there's certainly more work to do, and we're committed to doing that hard work because we know that there's proof of concept here. We saw it in the movie that outcomes have gotten better for young people where many of these programs have been implemented, where many of these tools have been implemented, and we're committed to doing that. This administration is, the governor is, the commissioners in the cabinet are, and it is going to be a whole of government response, and you know, we will get it done. And if E knows anything, she knows that I'm really impatient, that I want to get things done yesterday, and so you know, stay tuned.
Yeah, well, we should all be impatient, right? I mean, these are human lives that we need to move fast to impact. I'm going to give the last word to one of our viewers, Linda, or listeners, Linda McCultney, and she said that she was hit by the explanation of why a child with many ACEs would respond so completely differently to common stresses than a child who has not experienced many ACEs. And she feels that this awareness, we all have to have this so that we understand this, and that's why we're here tonight, Linda. So thank you. That's why I wanted to end with you, because like if we do not accomplish nothing tonight, which we already accomplished, this connection around training pediatricians, like if we have raised awareness in the hundreds of people on this chat about why children behave differently and how we need to adapt to support them, not expect them to respond differently, but to adapt our policies and our practices so that we serve them. Dave, you wanted to have the last word, and go for it.
Oh, I do. Just let you know, I've got comments coming in on my email from people who are on the call that are saying they are going to purchase licenses. So there are going to be other showings coming up pretty quick. Okay, and the website for the VLC, the link is in the chat.
Oh, thank you, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think that this is, like, we have a government leaders begging us to put on a mask, right, to deal with this pandemic. It's like, it's all hands on deck. There's a moral obligation for every human being to play some role in addressing ACEs. So thank you all for joining tonight. Thank you all for the participants. We will process all of your chat, and I think we've generated some more momentum around this pandemic response. So thank you very much, and we will see you soon. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.